Since 1991. That's the last time I was there. They had grass and it was mud, you know. I remember that game. It was a hard fought win. And I remember we had white jerseys on and they weren't white when you walked off the field. Um, going against a program that won 7 games last year, had a chance to win 8, 9, lost one to Villanova last year. They should have won 14-13. They lost, and they've been played Missouri Valley. They played North Dakota State. Teams that we both played. So you have a good idea of the type of football they play. Their head coach has built programs wherever he is. I mean, he has 173 wins as a head football coach. That's pretty impressive. And Dad played with Johnny Unitas, and for them to be playing in Johnny Unitas Stadium is pretty unique. But we know the task at hand. We knew this leg of the schedule. We're going to have 2 road games, 2 bus trips, which we're not a bus team, not twice in a year. We usually are flying out west. So again, it comes down to how well you prepare on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the mental focus going into the game, and then making the travel and being ready to play when it's kickoff.
You guys haven't won a road game since 2023.
Oh, thanks for reminding me. I knew you'd have that stat. Yeah, I mean, it's not a great one, and if you want to achieve what you want to achieve as a program, guess what you have to do? You got to go out and win road games. I can remember back, and I don't care how you win them, you got to win them. I mean, we were playing in Ophir, Western Hill, and kicked a winning field goal the year we went to the playoffs. And you just got to find ways to win those road games. They're all going to be close. They're all going to be tough ones. That's the difference, I think, on teams reaching playoff caliber, the ability to win playoffs. Obviously, last year we weren't a playoff caliber team because we couldn't go on the road and win a football game.
Now that you've had a chance to look at your film, see what you guys did well, where there's room for improvement, how much confidence do you have going into a game, and more importantly, how much confidence does this team have going in with what they were able to accomplish?
I still think, there was a little bit of disappointment because when you turned on the film, I told you before, you're never as bad as you think you're bad when you turn, never as good. So there's a lot of things on film we got to clean up. I still think we're under construction. Didn't like the pad level of our offensive line. We got to play at the greater pad level, the fundamentals on special teams, giving up a punt return or even in our protection, defensively, a lot of missed tackles. So again, I told you there's no moral victories. The reality is you are what you put on film, and to dig in that film, we left a lot out there. And the disappointment was we knew we couldn't beat ourselves. When we get into a 2-minute, we got to finish those and not turn the ball over. And defense gets an interception there in the fourth. We got to finish. We got to score touchdowns. So there's a lot of improvement. That's the fun part of this part of the season. I still figuring out, who needs the touches, what type of team are we defensively, offensively, and special teams. And come this Saturday, we got to be a lot better than we were this past Saturday in East Lansing. I do know that, and that's why you practice. That's why you go out on Tuesday, Wednesday, and we're hard on our kids because you tell me you want to be the very best, you want to be, then guess what? We cannot keep seeing some of the things we saw on film, and that's the reality.
When you see those things on film at Michigan State, are you glad you have another game before conference play to kind of, forget the bye week? I mean, just another live action game to kind of clean those things up before it gets really important?
Yeah, I mean, I think every team, whether it's Towson, whether it's teams in our league, you're building each and every week, trying to eliminate. We call them habits. We have some bad habits, and when you watch film, I'm sure they can pull up the film and see some bad habits by our kids on all 3 units, and those are the habits we're trying to clean up, those daily habits. And where does that start? It starts with us as coaches. We got to coach better. We got to go out on the field and really hold them accountable to those fundamentals so that when we do turn on the film, we see what we coach, we see what we do on Tuesday, Wednesday. Are we there yet? No, I don't think any team is peaking or at that level. Michigan State can probably say the same. Towson can probably say the same. We're all trying to still figure it out.
When teams obviously try to limit
guys in the run game the way Michigan State did this past week. When you guys were able to, have the success you did in the past game as a result of that this past week.
Yeah.
How did, how that help you guys confidence-wise going forward when teams seem for that, you can still, kind of beat them through the air?
And we feel confidence in our pass game, and we still haven't. I still feel we got a lot of threats offensively in that wide receiver room. I told you before, a lot of them are still learning, and when you're learning, you're not playing as fast, you're not running as crisp of routes. Them and the quarterback having that connection, they haven't been thrown to each other for a long period of time. So all those things are the things that we need to continue to improve upon, but we believe we can throw the ball. Against Michigan State, we knew we had to go in there and be able to complete some balls and move the chains by throwing the football. We knew that there's going to be some fourth down plays, and I really liked how our offense has executed up to this point for the season on those fourth down plays. But, sometimes it's easy making those calls when you got number 12 as your quarterback and you have trust in those guys on the perimeter or the guys up front to protect. So there's some areas, trust me, coaches, we're always looking what areas we need to improve, but there's some areas our guys are really doing well. We just want to bring it together. I'd love to see our run game and pass game, come together where you can run and pass. And we have yet to hit a true explosive over the head type of passes that we worked hard all spring on. And, that's probably the area I think in the next 4 weeks we got to continue to prove, because as teams try to stop either your run game or your quarterback, there's going to be opportunities that they get closer to the line of scrimmage. We have to have that guy that can, get by somebody and put the ball up and go catch it.
In that opening drive on Saturday, you guys ran a couple of, for lack of a better word, quote-unquote, trick plays.
Mm-hmm.
You had that. One of them was incomplete, the pass out wide to throw downfield from Walter.
Yeah.
And the double reverse pass handoff back to Bo as well.
Yeah.
That one was able to hit. Do you think you guys will kind of continue to open up the playbook a little bit more, the deeper and deeper you get?
Yeah, we do. We rep them. There's probably, game one was probably the only one we didn't really go in with one. But I think each and every week, those are things we work on. They're fun. It keeps teams off balance. And, we had to keep Michigan State off balance. And no matter who you're playing, you got to have some things ready that you can attack. And, we felt going into the game on some of those, hey, we could take advantage. I think one was Alex McDonald down the sideline on the double reverse pass. So, I like it. It's great to see. We probably didn't do much of that in the past. We're doing a lot more, and I think you'll continue to see that trend.
How much of your total playbook is in
Or
Or is it just
yeah, I would say 50, 55. There's some stuff we ran in the spring we have yet to touch back on. And all of it depends on what type of defense. Coach Yursich does a great job. He's not going to be a cookie cutter. We do this. He's going to study film and see how to attack a defense. And if he feels something from the past or something that he has is going to work, we're going to use that. And I think that makes it hard. That makes it hard to defend, especially when you got to worry about 12 in the backfield too.
you're facing a team that's playing their first home game?
Yeah.
Playing a joint United States.
Yeah.
Some of your players don't even know who he is.
Yeah, I'm going to educate them. Or their best former alum. Do you know what alum? Anyone in here? You guys remember the name David Meggett?
Oh, David Meggett.
Yeah, 10-year NFL. I know. Because, YSU played him 1988, 1989, 1990, and the last time was 1991. But for them to be on the road for 3 weeks and to get 2 wins on the road tells you, guys, it's not easy winning games on the road. They're 2-1. Had to go in like we did against Maryland and, probably looked and made mistakes that kind of, they beat themselves. But to come home, if we have to be ready, the mindset for us is you're walking into a buzzsaw. They're going to probably be in all black. I don't know what the crowd is going to be like. It looks like a beautiful stadium, beautiful setting. But, our job is to make sure we're ready to execute, and it starts in practice, and that becomes the game reality. And that's what we want to see this week. And yeah, it's going to define a little bit of who we are, because again, as we get into league play, if you want to be a contender, you got to go on the road and you got to win hard games no matter what. I think nobody remembers us the score of the Western Illinois game. They weren't a very good team that year, but guess what? We found a way to come home with a victory, and that helped a lot when going into the playoffs.
You mentioned that you stressed to the team how important this game was, just in terms of adding and building momentum going
Mhm.
into the
Yeah, I think too, when you're looking and, both teams have 2 wins. Now you got cross-conference games, the Missouri Valley, I'm sure helped Villanova last year, beating us game 1, the CAA and Missouri Valley. I mean, we're all striving to get that magic number. What that magic number is, years it could be 7, years it could be 8, but you're always trying to get to that 8. And how important that is when 2 conferences are playing each other. That weighs a lot when people are making tough decisions, to put teams in. And so early on, yeah, the importance of this game is huge.
Before the season, back in the spring during fall camp, you touched a lot about how you wanted the offense to be more multiple in the run game. Through the first 3 games, can you kind of expand on what you've seen in that regard and how that kind of unfolded for you guys?
Yeah, and our running backs, they're very unselfish. Some of them haven't had a lot of carries just because, a lot of them are reads. A lot of them are blocking. So if you see Bo on an explosive in one of those games, it's usually Jaden Gilbert that's blocking a linebacker or a safety no one talks about, or the pass protection when we're passing and blitz pickup. So to see Jaden, because we've been waiting and we knew what he can do, and we feel we have other running backs. So, yeah, we want to get into that groove where it's just more than number 12 running the ball, but number 12 running the ball eventually will help those other guys when they touch the ball. But we want to get all those guys going in our rushing attack because, we know in our league you got to be able to run the football. And it's got to be from a lot of guys, not just quarterback. It's got to be a running back room, and we feel we have a running back room. Some of them haven't had touches. You guys probably didn't know about Jaden too much and saw what he could do last Saturday, and we want to continue to build upon that.
I know the bye week's next week, just having a bye week this year. How's that affect?
It's hard because I don't even want to think about it. I really don't. As a head coach, you always got to think ahead on schedules and practice days. And, you want to stay focused on what task is at hand right now. And that's going on the road and, trying to get a tough road win. But for us, we got a lot of young guys. For the first time, guys, we took 15 redshirt freshmen to Michigan State, which I've never have. So we got a lot of young kids, and the bye week not only gets us, getting some guys better, for us that are on the ones, but it also gets some of those young kids some reps that they desperately need because at the end of the year, you need depth. In the game of football, you're going to lose guys, and you got to have guys ready. And I look at the tight end room. That's probably one. If you would have told me we're going to play 3 games without Colt Seacrest during camp, I was, hell, what are we going to do? But other guys have stepped up, Alex McDonald, Michael Manna, Austin Bray. And that's at every position that we got to be ready, whether it's running back, whether it's on the offensive line, defensive line, linebacker. Graydon Rollins stepping in and playing for Preston Zandier in the first half of the Robert Morris game. So you continue to build that depth, and how do you do that? You do it in practice.